If most of your life was spent being the people-pleasing nice guy, and you're trying to break free and become a man that you were meant to be, a man that you respect, then this video is going to be like a breath of fresh air. This journey of masculinity, self-discovery, and self-development should be way more simple than all the gurus out there make it to be. But the amount of advice out there is just confusing and makes it more complicated when you don't even know who to listen to. In this video, I'm going to share what worked for me and where I was versus where I am now. And at the end, I'm going to share a few books with you guys that helped shape my mindset along the way and even taught me a couple things that really helped. Before I get into it, please drop a comment below to tell me a bit about where you are at and in your journey and what has been a struggle for you so far. So let's start with where I was. So my first thoughts in most situations that I found myself in were always around, what would that person think? It was automatic. Like I couldn't control it. My first initial, the voice in my head, the initial voice was like, what are they going to think? Or what's that person's perspective? Or what are they going to say? It was never about, oh, I'm doing what I want to do and there's just someone standing there, right? It was always like, uh-oh, what are they going to think? I was always on alert, always kind of on edge in that way. And I would just go along with what was happening. So if there was, if my family wanted to do something, then cool, we did that. If my friends wanted to do something, then I would just go along with that. I rarely ever gave my own ideas or said, you know what, no, you guys go ahead. I'm going to go do this other thing because I just wanted to be around those other people. If I ever thought that someone was negatively thinking about me or that I might have done something wrong or bad, I would try to fix it right away or become defensive and try to defend myself. Just like, no, I wasn't doing XYZ or something like that. I tried to have other people see me in a good light, and I couldn't take criticism, and I couldn't accept the fact that maybe I did something that someone didn't like and that was okay. It was more like, oh, you didn't like this thing. Okay, let me try to not do that again, around you or something like that. You kind of remove all of the things that people don't like about somebody. And I just became somebody that everyone was like, yeah, he's a nice guy, but it was never like, oh, Andre's the man because of XYZ. It was always just like, yeah, he's a nice guy. Kind of like a lowest common denominator of what people like is something that I thought of a little while ago. So I was bad at ending things. So a bad ender, bad at saying goodbye, bad at ending relationships that I knew weren't going to work out anyway, bad at, leaving a party or something early because I wanted to go do something else, or leaving a situation because I didn't really want to be there. I was bad at ending things and walking away from things that weren't serving me. And when it came to dating, when I thought of a girl that I liked, my first thought would be, I wonder if she's going to like me. And I'm going to tell you the opposite of what that should be in just a few moments. But that was my first thought. Like, I wonder if she's going to like me. If I was ever the person organizing something, like some kind of event, usually I would still go out of my way to ask other people what they wanted. And take their opinions and their preferences above my own. And I would rarely ever plan an event just the way that I wanted to do it. I didn't really share my opinions. I didn't really know what my favorite things were, favorite foods, favorite movies, favorite whatever. Music was something I was always tapped into. But other things like events or activities, like my favorite things, I wasn't really tapped into that. I didn't really have that connection with myself. And one example that kind of wraps it all up is I rarely knew what I wanted to do for my birthdays. In my family, I was always going along with what the family wanted to do. And I rarely said, no, I don't want to do that. And there was always something going on around my birthday, which is what we ended up doing. So it was never really something of like, oh, Andre wants to do XYZ, so let's go do that. So now where I am is I worry and I care a lot less about what other people think, to be honest, because I realized that I believed what I thought other people thought about me. It wasn't that I believed what they did think about me. I believed what I thought they thought about me. So I realized that the things that I was worried about other people thinking about me were probably not even true. Were probably not even the thoughts that they were having in the first place. So all of that was just make-believe in my own head. So I don't care about what they think anymore because I'm probably wrong and because I'm just over it. So I can override it pretty easy if that voice still says like, oh, what do they think? Or, oh, what's that person going to say? I can just override that part because I know that that part of me, that voice is not me. It's not actually the real me. It's not a part of me. It's just something that my mind is saying, but it's not me. I live a lot more in line also now with what I want to do. And I'm not seeking external validation nearly as much as I used to. And I used to go to social gatherings or group events and want to kind of be friends with the leader and kind of gain their approval and their validation. And I realized, like, why am I doing this? What is it that I'm trying to accomplish here? Why am I being so drawn to have this closer relationship with this leader person? And so I no longer seek that validation from somebody else. I have my own internal validation that what I'm doing is good and that I am good and that I am worthy and valuable to society. If someone says anything negative about me, I know now that it's just their opinion and that there are plenty of haters out there who love sharing their opinions. So if you find yourself in an environment and someone is saying something, it's like, okay, that's just that person's opinion. There's haters on the internet. There's haters in real life also. So it's not something that I now am worried or concerned about or I'm going to try to fix. It's just like, whatever, dude, like that's your opinion. Like, who cares? Also, I'm much better at ending things and saying goodbyes than I used to. Sometimes I just practiced the word goodbye. Sometimes I would practice just leaving a situation or saying, hey guys, I'm going to go do XYZ because I wanted to practice that muscle. And so leaving a situation early or saying goodbye or just, being okay, being the one that ends something, that ends a conversation, that ends a relationship, that ends whatever. Whenever there's another person involved, you can be in the driver's seat and be like, you know what, I'm done here. I'm going to move on. Thank you for your time. I'll talk to you later. Or see you never, have a nice life. Both of those are totally fine. In dating, the opposite of what I used to think, which was, I wonder if she's going to like me, is I wonder if I'm going to like her, right? I'm taking the power back. I am now having the opinion that, or having the thoughts of, I wonder if I'm going to like her. I wonder if she's going to be the type of person that I would like, rather than just having this crush, this, made up scenario in my head, this love story of, ooh, I wonder if she's going to like me. It's now, I wonder if I'm going to like her. I wonder if she's going to meet my criteria. I wonder if she's the type of woman that I would want to be with, because I now have more criteria and I have better specifications, which I didn't have before. It was just going after some fleeting feeling, some anxious attachment, rather than having specific criteria of, this is what I want in somebody. I wonder if she's going to fit that bill. Very, very different. I now also organize events the way that I want to do them, rather than the way I think other people are going to want to do them. Of course, you still want people to enjoy them, but I lead. I am the leader. I'm the organizer. I am the one planning it. And I've realized that just as much as I used to go along with the flow beforehand, other people will go along with the flow if I make the flow. So I know that other people like to follow and like to come along for the ride. I know that because I was that way. And I know that because I see it all the time. Go to any event, you're going to see a whole bunch of people following. Go to any rock concert, any concert in general, you got a whole audience of followers and one leader. You can be that leader. You can be the one who creates the flow everyone else starts to follow. And with that, I'm much more in tune with my opinions and with my preferences and with my favorites. I'm starting to build and learn the things that I like, the things that I prefer when there are options, rather than just being indecisive and saying, whatever you want to do or whatever you think is best, or I'll just have what you're having, right? I now have my preferences and what I choose to have and what my opinions are in general in life and in society. Last but not least, I decide what I want to do for my birthday, and then I go do it. I plan it, I invite people, I say, come along if you want, and then I go have a great time with my friends. And I have a great time with my friends who decide to show up because they want to show up for me, rather than the friends who come to something just because that happens to be what's going on, or because I decide to throw something and just have as many people as possible, which is something I used to do. I would rather have an event where it's me doing what I want to do and the people that show up actually care about me and want to be there for me. And that is way different than the way I used to do things when I was trying to please all the people all the time. So now let's talk a little bit about what this means and how this happens and how we can start breaking free from this whole pattern and this whole way of being. So really what's going on here is that we are seeking external validation. We are seeking other people's approval so that we feel better. And in order to do that, we feel like we need to be nice and we need to please other people in order to receive praise and validation and approval from others. So let's cut to the root of this. This might be uncomfortable to hear, but we're just going to cut right in. This could very well be because we didn't get that validation, that love, that attention from our caretakers in the early years of our life. This was the case for me, given a few attributes or aspects about the family environment where I grew up in. I was more neglected than my siblings. And so I didn't receive the amount of affection or the amount of love that I wanted or that I needed as an infant, as a child, right? As a toddler who can't even ask for what he wants, doesn't even know what he wants or needs. He can't ask for those things. So not receiving those can start to program you in a way where you start to try to do things to receive that, because it's not just being handed to you. And in healthier families, that love and that affection is just being handed to you. So we start to live in this way of seeking external validation and external approval because it makes us feel better. And the whole the thing that it comes down to is there's an inner hole we're trying to fill, right? I felt like this for a long time, to be honest. I was like, I can feel it. I can sense that I have this kind of hole in my chest, this hole in my emotions. There's this inner hole in my being that feels empty. And I wanted to fill it. And I tried to fill it with getting approval or validation from people that I just met, from people that I would consider friends when really they were just an acquaintance because I met them once or twice. So it's a delicate subject, but just cutting down to the root of it, a lot of times that's what it comes down to. And that leads us to not respect ourselves. We don't feel like we can differentiate ourselves from others, ourselves from our families, ourselves from our work colleagues, ourselves from the people we call friends. We don't respect ourselves enough in order to do our own thing. We feel like we have to go along with the flow. We feel like we have to receive and perform so that we can receive validation from other people. And this leads us to not having our own direction in life, not having our own internal compass in life, and we follow others. We don't know which way we're going. We don't know which port we're trying to sail to, and so any direction is going to take us there, right? We just go along with whatever flow because we're just along for the ride, rather than saying, this is where I'm going, this is what I'm working towards, this is the direction that I'm heading, and if this doesn't fall in line with that, then I'm not going to do it. And we don't have the inner strength to cut off these other options. And so we just say yes to everything. A lot of this comes from trying to make ourselves feel better inside. And that comes from what I talked about at the beginning and that kind of sense of that inner hole. We're trying to make ourselves feel better, but feeling a little bit better, putting a Band-Aid on the situation is not the same thing as healing that part of us and stepping up as the man that we know we can be. It's just something we've never done before. And it's a very different way of being and a very different way of operating. And the reason why we try to make ourselves feel better inside is because, let's just look at the exact reason why that might happen. There are things inside that don't feel good. And the reason why is because there's a lot of suppressed and repressed emotions that we've carried for years, if not decades of our lives. And I can say this because I was that way. I spent so much time trying to make myself feel better internally because I had suppressed practically all my emotions from the time I was, I don't know, let's say 7 years old, maybe 5 years old, right? Pretty much everything was suppressed. And I tried to feel a little bit better from other people. And the reality is, I was trying to get something from them. I was trying to not take something from them, but I wanted them to give me that sense of that feeling. And the reality is that I was almost a drain to them in a way. I had to do my own inner healing so that I could not feel like I had to fill that hole from somebody else's validation and presence. But when we have all of the suppressed emotions and the repressed emotions inside of us, then we're going to want to numb that out somehow and make that go away somehow. And we try to do that a lot of times socially, and that can come out as being the nice guy a lot of times. Another aspect, which is a little bit related to the previous one, is you might be a highly sensitive person. Not highly sensitive in terms of like you're so emotional, but highly sensitive meaning that your senses, your 5 senses, sounds, smells, feeling temperature or stuff like that, could be more sensitive to you and your body and your nervous system than, let's say, the average person. And so it comes down to the nervous system, really. And if your nervous system, if your nerves are more sensitive, then you're taking in way more data and you're processing way more information than most people. And if that gets to be too much, you start to kind of shut down and suppress a little bit. And so then that leads to more suppression, and that leads to more trying to feel better, which can lead to more people pleasing. So how do we start breaking out of this? How do we start breaking free from this cycle and this conditioning, this programming, whatever you want to call it, these loops? There's a lot of different words for it. How do we start breaking out of it? So specifically for men, a lot of this is specifically for men because we get into that nice guy paradigm, that nice guy syndrome, that nice guy pattern, the nice guy conditioning, programming, whatever you call it. And for men, there's specific things we can do to break out of it. Now I'm going to share what's worked for me. So the first one, this was probably one of the hardest things I've done, but the first one is to have a mission. What is your mission? What is your purpose for being here on this planet? What is the impact that you want to have that is greater than you, that is greater than your immediate social circle, that is greater than just, the people you hang out with, right? That's bigger than your job. What is the mission that you are going to dedicate your life for? What is the mission that is going to guide your decisions from now for the rest of your life? What is the purpose that you were put here on this planet? A lot of times, this is a discovery process. It's not necessarily a choice that you get to make. There's going to be things that feel right. There's going to be things that don't feel right. And as you discover the ones that feel right, you will start to find which one or which ones actually resonate with you more. It's less of a choice and more of a discovery process, but it is a choice to follow it. So you have to discover and then choose to follow your mission. And I think that is by far the most important out of all of these. In order to do that, in order to cut off other possibilities and focus narrowly in on what your mission is, you need to heal your inner emotions so that they don't distract you along the way. Because of all of the suppressed emotions that we've had over the decades of our lives, especially as men, there is a lot in there that can help us be more focused if we tap into it. But this suppression creates so much noise in our heads and so much distraction, and it can pull us off of our path once we know what our mission is, to the degree where we're distracted all of the time because it's an internal distraction rather than just like an external shiny object syndrome. But if we don't heal ourselves and our inner emotions, then we're not going to have the clarity needed to realize that something is a distraction externally and to just say, no, forget that, close the door, I'm focused on this. The other thing that happens when we heal our inside world is that we can tap into our anger that we've suppressed and the aggression that we've suppressed. And that is actually where our power and our drive comes from, because our emotions are the leverage that we use to make decisions and to act in this world. And if we've suppressed that, which I did, a lot of guys do, if we suppress that, we are literally suppressing our power and the thing that makes us decisive, which is a huge part of being a masculine man. So healing our inner emotions is a massive piece of the puzzle. As you do that, you can then start to say no to other things and say yes to your mission and be a lot more focused. This is the third aspect. You've decided your mission, you've discovered and chosen to follow your mission. You've healed your inner world, you've healed your emotions, and now you can say no to everything else and say yes to your focus and to your mission in this planet, on this planet. So it is so important that you decide that you're going to follow it and you heal and you start to do only the things that are in line with your mission. The next aspect that I think is super important, which really helped me a ton, is to learn. Start learning and asking questions. Watching this video shows me that you're already learning. So I love that. Learn about masculinity. And I've got some books I'm going to recommend at the end of this. Learn about yourself. Ask yourself questions. Be curious about what makes a masculine man and what makes you who you are and what the differences are. Ask questions about why you're feeling what you're feeling. Ask questions about why you are the way you are. Find out about your emotions and start to feel them and how to process them. Learn how to process your internal state. Learn how to process the things that are distracting you so that they don't distract you anymore. Learn all of these things and put them into practice. You need to find ways, this is the next one, you got to find ways to tap into your masculine energy. Learn how to feel the masculine energy that makes you a man. This is something I talked a little bit about when I was speaking about healing your emotions. As you start to clear away all of that noise, you can learn to tap into your masculine presence and your masculine energy and how you can start to feel in general the things that you've suppressed and start to let them go. And as you start to do that, you become way more coherent in who you actually are and who you were actually meant to be. And it's going to become a lot easier for you to do this the more that you do it. It's kind of like a chicken and an egg problem, but you just start processing, start learning. And as you do that, it is going to become easier for you and you will live more coherently than you ever have in your whole life. Another aspect which I think is actually very important and maybe is not spoken about so much is learn about your family. Learn about your family dynamics. Learn about the family environment where you grew up. And did they give you what you needed? Did they give you what you needed then? And are they giving you what you need now? How did they shape you? How did they make you or be a part of the puzzle in which you grew up in so that you became a piece that fit into all of the other pieces? And that piece has a certain shape because it fits in with the shapes of all the other pieces. But if you were a little bit more separate from that, a little bit more differentiated, what would your shape be? You might not know. I definitely didn't. So I had to learn about my family and realize the level of dysfunction that is in my family, the level of incongruence between my way of life and my family's way of life. And I had to realize these things and see them so that I could then choose, do I want to fit in and stay a puzzle piece in that puzzle, in their puzzle, or do I want to have my own shape? So it's another aspect here of discover and decide. Discover what's going on and then decide if you're going to proceed one way or the other. And then the seventh piece, number 7, I want to leave you with here is find exercises that you can do to work on all of these things. These exercises can look like journaling. They could look like meditations. They could look like the discovery of your mission or discovering the family environment just by reading books or watching other videos or just learning more so that you can start to do whatever exercise is necessary to start to shift the things that you want. So you can get some of these exercises out of certain books, and I'm about to list some for you here. I teach my clients certain exercises that help learn the internal world and realize why I am the way I am and do I want to keep being this way and how do I release a lot of the stuff that I've suppressed. It's all very important. There are some that you can in some other books where you can journal and start to write out and answer questions about why you think you are the way you are or kind of where you came from. There's a lot to do. And here's the thing, guys. This is your responsibility. It may not be your fault that you are the way that you are, but it is your responsibility if you want to change. We can spend so much time and energy pointing the finger and blaming others, but until we realize that this is a level of work that only I can do, nothing's going to change, because you are the only person who can change you, right? How many times have you tried to change someone else, right? It just doesn't work. You are the only person who can change you. So this has to come from within. So again, it's a discovery process. Discover how you are and who you are. You might have an idea of that already, and then decide that you're going to change things. And if you're not actively taking the steps towards it, I would say you don't want it. You just think it's a nice idea. So you have to actually want the thing and then decide to start making changes. Here are some books that really helped me along my journey. I've got 6 here for you, and I want to share these with you. I'll talk a little bit about what I learned from them. If you grab one, let me know, drop a comment. If you have read the book, let me know what you thought of it. But these ones really impacted my life. Book number 1 is called The Way of Men. What I loved about this book and how it's different than a lot of other masculinity information gurus out there on the internet today is that it takes the approach of what masculinity is relative to other men, as opposed to what masculinity is relative to femininity. Instead of saying this is feminine and this is masculine and using those as explanations for why something is one way or the other, The Way of Men talks about what men need from other men, not what women need from men to define masculinity. And there's 4 main things that he talks about. 1 is strength, 2 is courage, 3 is mastery, and 4 is honor. Because if you're fighting and holding a perimeter with your brothers, you need to have the strength to be able to fight. You need to have the courage to show up into battle, the mastery to be able to have the confidence that I can perform. And then when you do that and you do something heroic, you get honor from your other brothers. And not everybody gets honor. Only the men who actually step up and do something that really encapsulates all of those things where other men didn't. That is when you get honor. As you live your life with that mindset, it changes the way that you start approaching things. If you prioritize strength, courage, mastery, and honor, it's going to be different than if you prioritize the things that they say women want from men. It's just a different way of seeing things. It's a whole different paradigm shift. The second book I want to share with you is called The Dead Bedroom Fix. It is exactly like what it sounds, right? It was written by a guy who was married and wanted to spice up his sex life because he wasn't having that type of intimate connection with his wife. And so it's an interesting book, but it also has some aspects I think that are important for just being a man in general, whether you're single or you're still dating. There are some really important lessons to be learned from The Dead Bedroom Fix. Of course, there are some that you can apply to your sex life and just in general to kind of have more of a lively experience in your bedroom. But I also think there are some really key points in there for just being a man in society today. The next book is more of a popular one. It's called The Way of the Superior Man. It also talks about mastering your masculine energy and the energy in your body, which is so key and something that I do a lot of and I teach with somatics. But one of the main lessons that I remember from The Way of the Superior Man is basically lesson number 1 that I said, which was you got to have a mission. And the way David Data is the author, the way he puts it in the book is, as a man, we penetrate the universe. Yes, we're going to penetrate our woman, right, in the bed, but we also penetrate the world and society with what we're doing and with what our mission is, with what the impact we want to have on the world is. And this took me so long to grasp. And it's something Steve Jobs talked about too in a video of his. He said, when you realize that the world is this box and you can poke in one side and something's going to pop out the other side, when you realize that happens, you can then start to decide how and what you want to do to see what comes out the other side. And it's that same theory that, we're going to penetrate society. We are going to put something out there and it's going to have an impact. There is going to be a ripple effect. And you can do that. You can have that impact on your life, on your family, on your community, on your business, on your work, right? But you have to decide what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And you have to act in that way where you know and you're intentionally penetrating society like that. And that is a very masculine thing. And I wasn't doing that for years. And if you're watching this video, maybe you're not either. The next book I want to leave you with is called Not Nice. Not Nice was written by Dr. Aziz. It's one of my favorite books. It is long. It is quite long. The first third of it was very impactful for me. And it was very simply broken down into everyday language that I could understand. Unlike some other books that are out there that are more clinical sounding. So I really liked Not Nice. It really broke things down. And my main takeaway from Not Nice is how important the somatic aspect is of learning our inner world and healing our inner emotional landscape to breaking free from the nice guy pattern, because a lot of it comes from suppression. It's so important, guys. The last book, not the last book, I have two more. The next book is called No More Mr. Nice Guy. Super popular book in this space. I'm sure if you've gone down anything down the nice guy rabbit hole, you've probably heard of and maybe even read No More Mr. Nice Guy. It's a great book. I think it's a little bit of a harder read, and there's like 40 or 50 or 60 exercises in the book. So it's a little more complicated to work through it in a way that kind of feels like you're getting somewhere and making progress, because there is so much in there. But it's a great book. If you've read it or if you haven't, I still highly recommend it. My main takeaway from No More Mr. Nice Guy was the fact that he talks about covered contracts. It was written by Dr. Glover. I've met Dr. Glover, great guy, also a recovering nice guy. So it's kind of interesting and great to hear someone else's perspective who's been in your shoes. And you can kind of tell just from his mannerisms and the way he is that, yeah, he used to be like this. And the covered contract basically says, I'm going to be nice and do something that you're going to like. And secretly, I'm doing it because I want you to do something for me that I'm going to like. So it really is this almost manipulative, invisible, unspoken contract that we make with the other person, but we never tell them about it. It's all within ourselves. It's more, that story that we're having, our one-way conversation we're having with ourselves. And it makes you realize that being a nice guy is actually not being nice. It's not a healthy thing to be. It's not something you want to be. It sounds good and nice in theory. It doesn't work that way, guys. There's a deeper level that you got to tap into. And when you do that, you start to realize like, oh, I do not want to be this anymore. Not one more day. The last book I'm going to leave you with is called The Highly Sensitive Person. You might have heard of it. If you haven't, you might have heard of the concept of highly sensitive people. What this book talks about is not about sensitive emotionally. There's a huge difference. There's a stigma about, especially as men, oh, you're so sensitive. Like, it's not that you're going to start crying at any little thing. The highly sensitive person talks about how some of us are born with nervous systems that are just more sensitive than others. Just like everyone's hair is different thicknesses, our nerves can be different thicknesses. Our sensitivities can be at different levels. And if your nerves are more sensitive to more light, to more sound, to more smell, to more touch, whatever, it's going to impact the way you process the world. And when you process the world and your environment in a way that everything is louder, you're going to start to shut down more. And as you shut down more, you're going to do more of the suppression and the repression that we talked about before, which causes us to want to be nicer in the world. So a little bit of a long video, but I hope that helped you guys. Drop a comment below if you've read one of these books and what you think, or like the video, please, if this helped you. Maybe send it to somebody who you think can benefit from hearing this message also. And I would just love to interact with you guys. So find a way to send me a message, or again, drop a comment below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.